This is the second community forum meeting we've had. The first one was in Cookson, so this is stop number 2 on our journey through all 7 buildings that we're going to talk about tonight. So let me start off with some information about upcoming tax renewals and the bond. We have in the near future 3 issues on our ballot. This November 5th, we have a 5.9 mil renewal levy. March 17th, we're intending to run a bond issue, which is what the bulk of our conversation will be about tonight. And then we also have a 5.8 mil renewal levy again, November 3rd of 2020. So that first and that third levy are renewals. That means that they're already on the books. You are already paying those taxes. Those will not result in an increase in taxes. The first one there, the 5.9 mil renewal, that was first passed in 1990. It's been renewed 5 or 6 times since then. And again, that amount that we got in 1990 has not increased since then. So I did a little research on the Bureau of Labor and Statistics, and it takes $1.98 today to buy what $1 bought in 1990. That's how school levies work. That's why they're on a renewal cycle. It does not increase revenue over time for the district. I just want to point that out. Even when you probably, like me, you probably got a recent letter from the Miami County Auditor that your home values went up. Congratulations. Even with that increase in home value, that does not mean your taxes will go up as a result of that renewal. I just want to make that clear. That's our November issue. The bond issue is not on the ballot until March, so make sure that's clear. Next slide here. So here's what we're going to talk about tonight. We're going to talk about our facility master plan project scope, site locations for those buildings, concept site plans, the schedule of that, the budget for that, and then we'll have questions. And feel free to ask questions throughout the presentation. I want to keep it informal and moving along, so feel free to ask whatever you want. Sure. You can move it in there if you want. So, project scope. What we're talking about doing is building 4 new buildings. 3 new pre-K through 4 buildings and a separate 5-6 facility. Also part of the project, we think it's important to add air conditioning to our high school. That will be a challenge. It will take some time to get that done because of lack of ductwork, electrical capacity, but we think it's important to get that done. Ours, frankly, is the only high school that I'm aware of that doesn't have air conditioning, so that's an important part of our project. That would also include abating, demolishing, and or reusing these 7 sites: Concorde, Haywood, Hook, Kyle, Van Cleve, Forest, and Cookson. If we'll go to the next slide. Here's a little bit about why this is our plan. This is our population map. I asked our transportation director, operations director to print this off for me. So all these little figures are children in our district. This is where they live. So we took a look at this to figure out what makes the most sense for where we would place schools. All the conversation since the last one has been about neighborhood schools. Well, where should those schools be to serve our kids? These are the sites we had chosen. This last one, I'll talk more about this big circle here in just a few minutes. But I want you to keep this map in mind as we talk tonight about the sites we've chosen. Just kind of refer back to this in your mind. This is where our kids are. Go to the next slide. So again, that's where our kids are. This is where our schools are right now. We have Cookson, junior high and high school, Hook, Concorde, Haywood, Kyle, Forest, and the building we're in tonight, Van Cleve. Those are all 9 of our buildings. Again, keeping in mind where our kids are, we have no school south of Kyle, but we have a lot of kids down in here. Go to the next one. So our plan is to take these 7 buildings offline and to replace them with 4 buildings, to reduce from 7 to 4 operational buildings. The only 2 that would remain in operation and currently stand would be our junior high and high school. Okay? Next slide. This is what we're trying to accomplish. Don't pay too much attention to the names. These are just placeholder names. We still have to have a conversation about what those schools would be called. But this would be a pre-K through 4, a pre-K through 4, and a pre-K through 4 somewhere in this area. This is a circle because we don't have a site yet for that. We're still trying to find a site in that area. This is generally the area of our search. We have a couple of leads with property owners that we're pursuing, so we're confident that we'll find something to fit that model down here to our south. But again, if you can remember back to that population map in your mind, you can kind of imagine what areas those three elementaries may draw from with our new schools. This site will be a 5-6 building. We chose that location because it's more central. That makes more sense in transporting our kids. Our 5th and 6th graders would ride the buses with our 7th through 12 graders. So that would make sense to keep them relatively close. And then you could imagine that the bus routes for these pre-K through 4 buildings would be pretty local. Okay? Next slide. So one of those sites we're going to talk about first is Hook. It's that 5-6 site. So this is Hook. This is the Hook building. This is Trade Square East. This is Trade Square West. Up here you'll notice there's a couple of ball fields. We have talked to the city about the Hook site and about those ball fields. They're willing to work with us and partner with us and allow us to build on those sites in the future. So by doing that, that would change to this. This would be a 5-6 building. We're looking at probably a 2-story, potentially a 3rd-story, 3-story building here that's part of our academic wing. And then this back here would be the gymnasium, cafeteria, library, band room, those kinds of things. What I really like about this plan, and for reference, you can see the outline of the old building here. What I like about this plan are a couple things. It gets bus traffic off the road. Currently, our bus traffic drops off here. It gets that bus traffic off of the road, so we have a bus loop here. It separates it from parent traffic, which would be on Trade Square West. So our buses could come in Trade Square East, go through this loop, drop off, and back out Trade Square East, completely separating them from parent traffic. It also separates teacher parking up here to the north, and I think it fits really nicely in this site. For reference, you can think about these green spaces and compare it to the homes nearby. So that's a pretty significant green space that we still have even with that site plan. Any questions about this site plan or comments? The gold star would be approximately the location of our front door. That site total is about 8 acres. We were concerned at first that might be a little tight, but it seems to fit pretty nicely on that site. If there's no questions, we'll go to the next one. Again, for reference, back to our plan overall. And then we'll go to the next building, which is Cookson. This is the current Cookson building, right here. This is Maple Crest Drive. This is Mystic Lane. Again, we have a couple of ball fields up here to the north. And our next slides will show you how that site will change. So this would be the new Cookson school. Again, this would be one of our 3 pre-K through 4 schools. It would serve about 575 to 600 students. That'd be about the size of the building. Again, we get the parent traffic and the drop-off off the road. Currently, it's on the street. We have our bus traffic once again separated with a loop drop-off here. We have plenty of sidewalks for the kids in the neighborhood to walk up. This dotted line back here could be a potential walking or bike path in the backside of the neighborhood. And we have plenty of great playground and green space. Once again, this will be the location of our front door. We're looking at an academic wing. And these are approximations. We haven't done much work to look at floor plans specifically. These are approximations of what the building might look like. There's a lot of positives about this. I think I mentioned once again we get the bus traffic off the road. Questions there? Our 3 elementary schools, they will have very similar populations, nearly identical. They will be designed, the floor plans would be virtually identical. They'll look different from the road. Having the floor plans be very similar will save us some design costs. Sorry, Mike. But that's a good thing for the district to save those dollars. Mike's our architect, by the way. But that's the plan for our elementary schools. 3 of them nearly identical. Those 3 sites around town. Next slide. Again, for reference, back to our district plan. Next slide. So you probably read in the newspaper recently that we purchased a piece of land out near Concorde. Concorde sits up in this corner. That's the Concorde site just off the map there. This is McKay Road. This is 718, and this is Washington over here. It runs north-south. If you've ever been out there at the end of a school day, don't do that. Traffic is a nightmare out there. We try very hard and have worked well with the city to try to fix that problem. But just where that school sits in relation to that site, we just can't get parent traffic off the road at the end of the day. So that creates a pretty dangerous situation having cars backed up here on 718 in McKay. This site that we purchased recently is a nice clean slate for us. It solves our traffic problem. What I really like about it is we have access here to McKay and 718, so we can really solve those traffic issues. Again, it's important to separate bus traffic from parents' traffic. There's a farmhouse right here, which is who we purchased the land from. They'll have a lifetime tenancy in that farmhouse, but that is our property once the contract gets all worked out. This is a very rough draft. We simply placed the building on this site for a frame of reference to let you know approximately what a building looks like. You'll notice there's no parking lots or trees or anything on this one yet, just to indicate size. All we know right now is it probably will face McKay Road, which is why the star is on the north part of that.
Hey, Chris.
Yeah.
We are a Concorde family, and I can attest to that.
Oh, yeah.
In the morning, it's not near as bad.
Yeah.
The afternoon is chaos. It's chaos for about 20 minutes.
Yep.
It's kind of interesting how traffic flows in. It's really, really busy, and then it's suddenly just dead quiet.
It
I
is.
need to advocate for a second.
Okay.
Police out there would be helpful.
Yes.
Folks are ignoring the speed limit signs.
Are they?
They are.
We'll bring that up with our SROs. I know that we kind of get hot and cold that sometimes, so
Yep.
we'll bring that up to them again. But yeah, traffic is a nightmare, and dealing with it, I'm sure you can understand why this is a good plan for us.
I never park, I just park usually and walk up and get the kids.
Yeah.
Because there's no point in lining up.
Right, yeah, there's not much space to line up. They get, the school does a really nice job. They get parents through there quickly, but it's just an unsolvable problem with our current setup. And we also know that this Concorde site will be marketable. There's a housing development around that, so once we tear Concorde down, we'll be able to sell that site and recoup some, if not all, of our cost of purchasing that piece of property there. So that'd be a good long-term solution for the district, getting the school off that corner site. That one is, I think, 17 to 19 acres, I forget exactly. I've heard so many acres going through my mind, but how many is it? 19 acres. So that's a nice size. Back to the slides again. So people often ask what kind of schedule that looks like. So again, the March 17th date is the date of the bond issue vote. So assuming we get a yes vote in March, we would begin design work. And design work would take about a year. During that phase, we would work with our staff and share floor plans with them and get input from our staff. We would also work with the community around those buildings. If you can go back to the Cookson site real fast. For example, one of our staff members, her father lives in this house with a pool, and he wanted to know what these green circles were. So he doesn't want pine trees behind his pool, which I completely understand. So we would work with people in the neighborhood to make sure that the building works well for them as well. We'll be considerate of those things. Get back to where we were. So design work from spring of 2020 to about spring of 2021, and then construction work would commence. Construction work, we're estimating about 18 months or so of construction. If everything works out perfectly and the weather cooperates and we have full work crews that show up every day, we're hopeful to get going at the start of the school year for 22-23. That's in perfect conditions. That's very likely not to happen, although we'll hope for it. But we intend to occupy those buildings sometime during the 22-23 school year. So, what that would look like in the construction phase is all of the buildings would go up. All 4 of them would go up at once. Once all 4 buildings are up, we would occupy those buildings, and then the 7 buildings would come down or be reused in some way. I want to go back to that reuse idea real quick. Forest is one of our 7 buildings. Forest has had the most dollars put into it recently. Well, I don't know about the most dollars, but it's in the best shape right now. It has a pretty good roof. The bones are pretty good. There is no air conditioning. Is there an elevator in Forest? Yes. Is there? Okay. There's no air conditioning, but it's a good, solid building with a pretty new roof. So we'll probably keep Forest as a location for alternative programs. For example, we have a high school program where students have a more flexible schedule. They do classes online, and they go actually underneath our stadium right now. That space is pretty cramped. It's pretty crowded. So that would be an example of something that we could move over to the Forest building and accommodate more kids. And it's a pretty good building, so we would hang on to that one. Cookson and Hook and the Concorde buildings would come down. And that leaves us with Kyle, Van Cleve, and Haywood. So there's a couple of options with those three buildings. There's the possibility that we will abate and demolish those buildings and return to green space. The other possibility that we're pursuing with the city is the question of, are developers interested in those buildings for some good use for our community? We're working with them to see if there actually is an interest with that. If we could find that interest, it would save the district dollars from tearing those buildings down. But we'll make sure that whatever that future use is, that it works well for our community, that it makes sense. What we will not do is we will not leave those buildings vacant, empty, and run down. We will take care of these sites. They are our sites, and we'll do what's right with them. Questions about that? So, construction, move-in, and then abatement and demolition of that 22-23 school year. And at that point, we would now have, instead of 9 buildings, we would have 6 operational buildings. The 3 elementaries, the middle school, the junior high, and the high school. Next slide. So, let's talk budget. This project is a $98.7 million project. What that will look like on the ballot, this is not a final number yet. This is the best estimate we have right now. We're hopeful it will get better. We don't think it will get any higher. But right now we're looking at 6.54 mils plus a half mil maintenance. When you work with the state, you're in the state funding window. The state expects you to set aside this half mil for future maintenance. They see themselves as a co-owner, and they want us to set aside the money to keep those buildings up. That's why that half mil is separated out. So all told, we're looking at 7.04 mils. If that is the actual number on the ballot, that will mean $20.71 monthly for every $100,000 of home value. I'll pause and let you do some math in your head real quick for yourself. But that's the monthly cost for a $100,000 home value. $20.71 monthly. This down here is important to note. For many years, we've been sending our tax dollars to Columbus. We enter into the window of state funding. That is the state share, and that is locked in. That won't change. So $31.8 million coming back to Troy once that money is available from the state, and that can be applied to our projects or future use. So that's an important thing to note. That's a significant portion of this overall cost is coming from the state. Any questions about the millage rate or the 31.8 or the total cost? Okay. So what we're looking at right now, I had a great conversation with a retired teacher this summer, and she emailed me. She didn't retire from Troy schools, but she lives in Troy. She's on a fixed income, and she's concerned about the cost of the project. Being a teacher, she wants to support education, but she's worried about cost. So through our conversation, she asked great questions, and I started asking questions, and arrived at this chart here. So what you're looking at is a list of 14 schools, including Troy, and these are schools that are in our county, in our athletic league, or some of them in our former athletic league, schools that people kind of compare Troy to. In this column here, I listed everyone's property tax for all of those districts, okay? Every bit of property tax that you pay for schools is part of this 24.74. That's what our district burden is. So on that list, our property tax burden is the 3rd lowest. But the teacher reminded me we also have an income tax. Now, our income tax is an earned income tax, meaning that it's on earned income. It does not tax retirement income or investment income, just earned income. Not that you didn't earn retirement, but that's all that gets taxed is earned income. Other districts have a tax on all income. Some districts have no income tax. So it's hard to compare one district to another when you're looking at different apples versus oranges. So what I did was I took all those districts, you'll see that some have 0, and I converted the income tax into property tax mills. The way I did that was I looked at how many dollars we collect for income tax, and then I figured out how many property tax mills it would have taken to generate those dollars. And I did that for all of these districts. And then I added that column to this column to get a total combined effective tax millage rate for all those districts. And then I sorted them from high to low. And you'll see where Troy comes in, third from the bottom. Only 2 districts on this list have a lower combined tax rate. So this would indicate to me that our taxes comparatively are pretty low. Now, you could argue that everybody's taxes are too high, but again, comparatively, on this list, we're pretty low. What I'd ask you to do also is consider if we pass the bond issue in March, which is about 7 mils. Again, we don't know that exact figure yet, but it's about 7 mils. That will slide us up to somewhere in here. Not to the top, somewhere in that range.
Hey, Chris.
Yeah.
When I look at the effective tax millage, I think, the column to the left,
Yep.
it says 24.74, right?
Yes.
And the 2 below that are actually higher numbers then because,
Yeah, when I sorted this, I sorted by this column,
Okay, I
not
see
this
that.
column.
I study this, I still never understand it, but there's something about a 20 mil floor.
Yep, there is.
This applies to that figure, I presume?
It does. Our 20 mil floor rate is a bit different than this rate. We're close to the 20 mil floor because permanent improvement levies, which we have one, does not count towards that 20 mil floor.
Okay.
Bond dollars don't count towards that 20 mil floor. That's why that number is a bit different.
Yeah.
All that means is that for operation dollars only, we can't go below 20.
Right.
We're close to that right now, but this is the total, including permanent improvements, including bond, including operating dollars. This is our total property tax
Right.
millage
I
for the
was
schools.
wondering how that worked with the levies that continually cycle through, you know.
Yeah.
The one that's last year, there's one next month.
Right.
There's one next year. I think there's another out there too. I
Yes,
think
it's the
kinda
third
hard
one on
to-
my list, yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to track them down, but none of them
Mr. Price does a
really
nice job.
are affected then, right? I mean, none of the other levies are impacted, or there's no additional relief at
No.
some point in the future? So this all kind of accumulates then?
They're separate buckets.
Yeah.
So those other levies are operational levies, or you did mention a permanent improvement levy.
Yeah.
Our permanent improvement levy is 1.1,
Yes.
is 1.1 mils.
The smallest of all.
Yeah, that one is collected and it's set into a separate pot. It cannot be used for salaries, can't be used for benefits, can't be used for electricity costs. That is only to improve or to buy pieces of equipment that last longer than 5 years. So for example, it could buy buses, it can repair roofs, those kinds of things, but it cannot go towards salaries. The renewals that we have this year and again in November of 2020, those are operating dollars that are part of that 20 mil floor. But again, the point here is that all those things combined are still 24.74, which is pretty low. And then we have our income tax. That income tax money goes into the general fund and can be used for salaries, benefits, transportation costs, utility costs, all the money that it takes to run the schools. And I think the point of your question is, you mentioned relief. So it's hard to project right now. Again, our taxes are relatively low compared to that group. The reason that this is an important project is about operations eventually. We have to get, yes, on the bond issue and get the buildings built, but long term we're talking operational costs. And people ask about staffing. Will staffing be cut? The answer is yes. I mean, right now we have inefficiencies in our buildings because we have several buildings that are small, and you reach a point where you just can't have fewer people serving lunch to kids. You can't serve 240 kids with one person. You have to have 2. But you could also serve 400 kids with 2 people. So by consolidating from 7 buildings into 4, we expect to save operational dollars in staffing, utility costs. We expect to, even with operating air conditioning, to be flat or reduce a little bit. Transportation costs, we're not quite sure, but I'm pretty confident the transportation costs will not increase because of this plan. So long-term operationally, it will save dollars or avoid costs. In addition to that too, this summer is a good example. So we replaced the part of the roof at Cookson Elementary. 40% of the roof was replaced. We sent that out for bid, and the lowest bid came in at just about $300,000, and we went with that lowest bid. So we replaced that roof at Cookson this summer. And I'm standing in front of you saying, let's tear Cookson down, right? I get that. But the thing is, we cannot just let the roofs go. We can't cross our fingers and hope. But that's a difficult decision that the board and we have to make in central office to spend those kinds of dollars on buildings that are very old. I forgot to mention this earlier. The average age of our buildings, the average age of our elementary buildings, the ones we're talking about tonight, is 77 years old. So if you were driving a very, very old car, how long would you, are you? So you're asking yourself, how long do you continue to put dollars into that? Do you fix the transmission if it goes out, or do you just have to bite the bullet?
You don't.
Mr. Jacobs is in the back of the room. He's our operations director, and he does a great job keeping these buildings looking great and operating well, but they're not efficient and they're expensive to operate.
I think you guys have done a fabulous job.
Thank
I
you.
consider myself a new resident. I've only been here 19 years, you know, so.
Well,
But
that's
from
our-
what I see, fabulous. The kids really enjoy their experience.
Good.
And I drive through other communities who's much smaller, and I think, wow, how did they manage a brand new building that I'm seeing everywhere?
That's why they're higher on the
Well,
list.
they've anteed up.
Yeah.
They've anteed up basically,
Yeah.
you know, so.
That's why they're higher on this list. Most of the districts on this list have built new buildings. So I started building like a timeline today of when our buildings were built. It's been quite a while. I am arguing it's time.
Yeah.
So again, long term, we expect to avoid costs or save on operations long term.
I'll
It's
ask
just-
one person, I'll say, Eugene, would you like to go to school in a new building in a couple of years? And if he says yes or no.
All right,
Let's see.
Eugene, see yes. And it's also important, we talk about health and safety a lot. So we don't have air conditioning, and only one of our buildings has air conditioning, our junior high. So we had to send kids home early from school a couple of days this year in October because of heat. And it's not just the heat, it's that there's no air movement in the buildings. It's just not healthy. The buildings were built in a time where windows and doors, the whole building was open. That's not today. That's a safety concern today. So today we have shut classroom doors and shut windows and locked out outer doors. So we don't get that same kind of environment. And it's not just about cool, it's about the air moving. And the air doesn't move in these buildings, and it's not as healthy as it can be. I'm not saying it's unhealthy, I'm just saying it's not what it should be.
Yeah,
And
I
then
have
safety.
a daughter attends this building too.
Yeah,
And I've asked her, and she's a flyer, so she's top floor.
sure.
So I said,
She feels it.
well, how do you manage? And she says, well, you just deal with it, I guess, just drink water.
Yeah. Safety is another concern. This building is a great example of that. All of our buildings, the outer doors are locked. Every entrance is a forced entrance with a video screen buzzer, so our secretaries have to buzz people in. But new design features make the buildings even safer. Our high school is a good example of that. So in our high school, once you're buzzed in, you're forced into the outer office before you can enter the hallways and be around classrooms. This building, once you're buzzed in, you are in the building. And then we expect people to walk to the office. So just additional safety features, additional health benefits, and the fact that the buildings are 77 years old, we're replacing roofs. So that's why the project is in place, and that's why we think when it comes time to vote in March, I feel like the plan we have is a good one. I feel like we've listened to people. I spent all last year, which is my first year in the district, with coffee chats and engaging people through strategic planning. The district did a phone survey with a random sample of citizens and asked why did the last issue fail. The resounding answer for why that issue failed was because people wanted neighborhood schools. We can't replace all 7 buildings. The state wouldn't help us do that. They wouldn't kick in their share to help us do that. We have to consolidate some. And we feel like this plan that we showed up here on the map is the best version of neighborhood schools that we can offer. We think it serves our population. Again, if you refer back to where our kids live on that map, that's why we've chosen those locations for our buildings. We think it makes a lot of sense, and again, long term will save money or avoid cost at least. Any other questions?
How long are you gonna finance the levy for the building?
Be a 37-year bond.
Why a Pi 6 building?
A couple of different reasons.
Especially when, it really got me when you said 5 and 6 are gonna ride the bus with 7-12. And now we're seeing more, the research data shows school time starting later. So now we're asking 5th graders, 6th graders to board the bus even earlier than what, well, 5th graders mainly, but I'm just interested to know why a 5-6 building, why not go with 4 K through 6 buildings?
I have a couple, I think, good answers for that. And by the way, I'm all for pushing school times back a little bit, but we'll work on that later. So 2 good reasons. First of all, I was the principal of a 5 and 6 building. What grade is your young man over here in?
Which 3?
I'm sorry, the young man we have sitting back here. What grade are you in?
Steve, what grade?
What grade are you in? Second grade. Okay, great, I'm safe. So if you know 5th graders and 6th graders, those kids are just a little weird. They're a little different. And by that, I mean they're going through some pretty significant changes from 5th through 8th grade. Again, having been a 5th and 6th grade principal, there's a couple reasons why I really like it. I like bringing kids together at that age. They're not elementary kids anymore. They're not junior high kids. They're in this middle school phase. Emotionally, socially, they're different from the other kids above and below them. So bringing them together, I think, allows us to work more directly with them. I also like bringing them together as 5th graders because you see the effect that this building has. Like, this is our 6th grade building. This is the first time in Troy we bring kids together across the district, and our staff here does a great job. You're not a tiger, you're not a pirate, you are a Trojan. And they work really hard with kids to develop that sense of unity across the district and really sell hard that these are your classmates. These are the people, when you play sports, when you're in the band, when you're in class, these are the peers you're going to have around you for the next 7 years. And they do a great job of that. In fact, we had some students from this building come and present at our board meeting and talked about just that, how they bring them together. And so I really like bringing kids together at that age because they're more accepting, because they don't recognize the differences between social classes and those kinds of things. If you bring them together for the first time in junior high, those lines have already been drawn, and their circles of friends are much smaller. So bringing them together, I think, is very helpful developmentally. And on the cost side, if we have 4 pre-K through 6 buildings, 5th and 6th grade is typically when you start to offer choices and electives. A great example is band. This actually serves as an orchestra room in the morning, right, Mr. Seafring?
Yes, it does.
Yes, it does. So this is our cafeteria and orchestra room. If we have 4 buildings across the district, and we have band in all 4 of those buildings, we have to have instruments, we have to have stands, we have to have storage for the instruments, and we have to have teachers to teach the class. There's no way we can expect one person to run around our district and teach band in 4 buildings. So operationally, it makes a lot of sense, and we'll save a lot of money by having that offered under one roof. So it's the developmental part of it, and it's also the cost savings part of it. And I'll tell you, being a 5th and 6th grade principal, I love that dynamic of that building. It was
And
a
the
great
size,
job.
you can say the size of the rooms are bigger also, so the cost will be higher.
Classrooms are a little bigger for those kids too, yeah. So the building will look, that's the one building that will be a different footprint from the other 3 because it's just a bigger building. With additional spaces like band and vocal music and those kinds of things. But good question. Other questions? Any questions from Facebook?
We're also taking questions from Facebook Live. If anybody would like to comment, we'd be more than happy to ask them on your behalf.
Okay. Nothing else? So if you are interested, we can do a little tour. Mr. Jacobs has identified a couple of interesting places for us to see. What's on the agenda? The boiler?
What we could do is go to our boiler room. We have a couple of 1954 steam boilers in this building that heat a hot water loop, so it's not really efficient. Then the steam itself makes the building so hot that it's hard to cool down. So we wait to turn our heat on until we're consistently in the 50s during the day, just for that reason.
And if you have another place picked out?
This building is a 1914 building, and the classrooms have drop ceilings in them, so we're going to go upstairs. The original ceilings are very tall. We put drop ceilings in them. Troy did it at some point in time. We have lost some plaster in areas that have actually fell through some of the ceiling tile. We inspect that monthly, but I'm gonna show you a couple, or 3 classrooms. We spent about $21,000 removing just acoustical tile to get to the loose plaster, and then putting in another acoustical ceiling in. It's a little heavier grid.
So you have to inspect the ceilings every month just to make sure the plaster's not.
Every month, we have a maintenance man do it, before after school. The
Operational
teachers
cost.
here can attest to sometimes hearing things fall down on the ceiling, and it may sound atrocious, but it might just be a couple little pieces of plaster. Our plaster does have horsehair in it here, so it's just very old. We do our due diligence, trying to tuck point the outside of the building. We typically spend $25,000 to $50,000 a year tuck pointing the mortar as things wear. Weather takes its toll, and we could never do a big project. This would be $3 million to tuck point this building all in one project.
There's additional meetings you said will be held?
Yes.
The other sites then too? All other sites?
The plan is for the next 7 months, we have 2 behind us already, so for the next 5 months, I'm gonna hit every building that was part of that 7 on the plan to host a community meeting. This is our smallest turnout of the 2 so far.
Well, I kind of wondered.
Yeah. But yes, anyone is welcome to come to any of the meetings. We'll have more information to share as time goes on, as we get closer to March. Like the site out in Concorde, we'll have more meat to that down the road. So more information will be coming there. We also have a lot of information on our website. We have frequently asked questions. We have, I think, presentations and information from the presentations. And if you ever have any questions at all, or hear of somebody who has a question, just have them call us. I keep saying it hasn't happened yet. My phone doesn't ring often enough. So if people have a question, they should call and check in. Email. We are ready and willing to answer any questions. Yes, we have a question.
What is the mills on the November ballot for the schools? 5.9?
Well, it's a 5.9 renewal, but it's not that the effective rate isn't really that high. Mr. Price, do you know the effective rate off the top of your head? 3.1, something like that? I'm guessing. 3.5. So it says 5.9 on the ballot. It's not actually collected at 5.9, it's collected at 3 point something because it's been renewed so many times. Anything else from Facebook?
We'll be more than happy to take any other Facebook Live comments.
I don't think you're going to stream while we walk around, are you? Okay. Okay, so there's contact There was contact information. We'll put it back up there. But again, just reach out if you have questions, and if you want to walk around, we're happy to show you our 1954 steam converted boilers. Right. Okay, but again, thank you for coming today.
What is the age for pre-K going to be?
It won't change. Our age is, do you remember, Dr. Moore?
Preschool currently starts at 3 years old for students identified
3 years.
with special needs.
3 years old for students identified with special needs, and some typical peers, but it still will be 3 years old.
All right. Are there any other questions from Facebook Live, or else we're going to cut it off in the next few seconds? I think that's it.
Okay, thank you.